या फिर मोड में जाके देखे।
Yeah, let's start.
Okay. Hi, Aman. You can start with your introduction.
Hi. Yes, first of all, thank you for giving me opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Sheikh Aman, and I did my BTech from Harvard Knowledge University, Patna, in 2022, and I started my career as a Mulesoft developer. So when I am in final year of my engineering, and I have around 2.5 years of experience in Mulesoft. That's all about me. Thank you.
Okay. So, what was your roles and responsibility in your last organization?
Yes, my role was to develop API to integrate two and more systems, and my responsibility was to understand architectural diagram and documentation of the API. And my roles was like I have to write YAML file into any point platform, and I have to move this YAML file, and after moving this YAML file, I will send it to the review, and after review is completed, then I will start the implementation of this YAML file to any studio. And after implementation of this YAML file to any studio, I locally deploy this YAML file into the endpoint studio and paste this to the postman. And then I also send for the review. And after review, uh, I push this code on into the git bucket, and I also deploy this code into the cloud. That's all about my roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, Aman. So, can you go ahead and explain your last project?
Yes, actually, my last project was a system, and in this project, my client was Reliance and his business partners. And in this project, basically, I had to integrate two systems where my source system was Ariba and my targeted system was S4HANA. And the line of business was in this project, basically, I had to basically my client used this project for e-commerce service. So I had to get data from the Ariba system and send it to the S4HANA system. And in the documentation, basically, I have to uh, develop two API, which is basically first one is Ariba S and second one the Ariba P. Ariba S was the system API, which I start implementation of this API through the Anypoint platform into the design center. And in this YAML file, basically, I have to add some standard response and also add some standard response. And in this YAML file, basically, there are three endpoints, WBS system, internal order system, and after all, fulfilling the root level information and endpoint related information in this YAML file. I merge this YAML file into the anypoint, and after merging this YAML file, I started the implementation of this YAML file through the Anypoint Studio. And after implementation of this YAML file through Anypoint Studio, I locally deploy this YAML file into the Anypoint Studio and test it through the Postman. And then I further connect with the targeted system, like the uh, target system person, which is basically ensure me to that the data is successfully created or not. And after this, ensuring the data is successfully created, then I deploy this YAML file through the cloud hub, and then I also put this YAML file into the Bitbucket. That's all over the Ariba system API. And now come to the main part of this project, which is basically Ariba process API. So in Ariba process API, basically I have to get data from the Ariba system and send it to the S4HANA system after this some transformation. And transformation was like I have to change the key name of the data and send it to the S4HANA system. And there are many scenarios in this API, like I have to send this data one by one, and I have also send the data to different system in S4HANA. And for this, I also use some router, choice router, and I also use some scope like Forge scope. And after all this, then I start implementation of the error handling in this API, which is basically follow the low level error handling strategy. And then I locally deploy this API into the Anypoint Studio and test it through the Postman. And I further connect with my team lead to post any suggestion, like I have to change some scenario and I have to some changes into the flow. And then after I write the unit test case for my API, and after this I further connect with the S/4HANA team for ensuring that the data is successfully created or not. And after data is successfully created, then I deploy this YAML file to the cloud hub, and I also apply some policies like rate limiting policy and client ID enforcement in my API, and then I also push the code of this API to the Bitbucket, and that's all about my project.
One question, the API was based on RAML or it was scheduler?
It is basically a scheduler based API.
So after how many hours the scheduler job is trigger the API?
Uh, it trigger the API every 6 hours.
Every 6 hours. Okay.
Yes.
Alright.
Yeah, so like again, I'll ask in your project, what was again the source system and target system?
My source system was Ariba and my targeted system was S/4HANA.
Okay. And what was the line of business here?
Line of business was e-commerce service.
Okay, okay, fine. And again, how many APIs were created in this project?
There are two APIs in this project, Ariba S and Ariba P.
Okay. So you named them like a system and process API. So you might be aware of this API-led connectivity. Can you explain
Yes,
this?
yes. API-led connectivity is an architectural approach suggested by Mulesoft, in which an uh, API will categorize into the layers, name as experience layer, process layer, and system layer. And in experience layer, we created experience API, which is basically directly connect with the UI and get data or fetch data from the UI. Like I have three UI, which is basically a Android UI, iOS UI, and web UI. Then I have to develop three API to connect with these three UI. And second one is the process layer. In process layer, basically we have to create a process API, which is basically used to transform the data, which is coming from the source system. And this is all about the process API. And in the system API, which is basically directly connected with the underlaying storage system, and it fetch or get data from the underlayer storage system.
Okay, fine. So in your project, like what kind of scopes you use there?
In my project, basically, I am using 4G scope.
Okay, what is for each?
For each scope in MuleSoft, it basically works on a collection. It takes a collection like array JSON file and CSV file. And after taking this collection, it flip the collection based on batch size and batch do processing on split collection. And after processing, it send payload as output what is text as input. And the main part of this for each scope, when we create any variable in it, variable will be modified and after the process.
Then
Okay.
if you use the for each scope in your project, can you tell me the scenario or situation where you have decided you have to put the for each scope in your project?
Yes, sir. So basically,
Explain
in my
it.
project,
I mean,
yes, yes,
explain for each scope in terms of by taking reference of your project.
yes. I explain it. Basically, in my project, I have to given some scenario like I have to send data to the targeted system, which is basically S/4HANA one by one, and data is comes into the uh, array of object. So in object there are many data in which is basically a comma separated. Then I uh, and for each scope also takes array data, and for this scenario, like I have to send one by one data to the target system, I use 4G scope.
Oh, okay. It was business requirement or you decide yourself, "Yeah, I have to send data one by one, or it was
It is
business
a
requirement.
it was basically a business requirement.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. Nida, go ahead, ask.
Yeah. So like apart from for each, what kind of error handling strategy you had for your project?
In my project, I use flow level error handling strategy in my project.
So, and only flow level you are doing? Why is that so?
This is basically a business scenario. In documentation, it mentioned that please follow the standard of the organization, like I have to, which is basically only using flow level error handling. Sorry, flow level, yes, flow level error handling strategy, and also uh, yes, flow level error handling strategy is used in my project.
One
Okay,
question,
okay.
do you not have any API, error handling API, like if suppose something is failed while processing, so you have just call those API, error API, so that it keep all that error transaction to somewhere else. Is there any design, API design in your project?
Yes, I remember it. There is a scope called try scope. In try scope, I use on error continue to process the failed processing of the flow.
So where do you keep? I mean, do you have any API already created for the error handling? While something got failed in the processing in anywhere in the flow, you just call those API and send those error transaction to the those API, and that API will further take care where he has to put those error transaction. Is there any type of
No,
API
I,
as
I have
designed
not.
or not?
No, I do not. There are no any design and any requirement to
Hmm.
use such scenarios.
What type of logger have you put to basically send the message to the console? Suppose some API got uh, some failed or some information we have to show on the console. So you must have some loggers. Have you
Yes, sir.
had you used any logger in your API?
Yes, the logger was basically a JSON logger.
Okay, fine, fine.
Okay, fine. So, like you said, that you use flow level. Suppose, for example, I am using an HTTP request connector, and I am expecting that request connector can fail sometime, and I do want to handle that situation at that place only, and not I don't want to wait for flow level or other levels, other up levels to handle that situation. So, what should I do in this case? Only for this HTTP request connector.
Uh, for HTTP request connector, we can use try scope. We can use uh, try scope with on error
Yeah, you were
continue.
correct. Mhm.
Yes, try scope
Yeah. So
to connect with the
so
unstable
now I
server.
yes, now Aman, I think you understand that based on the processors and based on the flows, we can use and we should use all type of error handling. Like so, for example, this HTTP request connector, we should always use a processor level error handling. I think it is a best practice to do. Okay. So apart from that, we talked about the types of error handler. What are the types of error handler Mulesoft has?
There are basically three types of error handler: try processor level, flow level, and global level.
Sorry, these are the levels. I'm asking about the types.
Okay. Uh, Error handler type. Basically, error handling we can use try scope. We can use on error continue and on error propagate scope to handle the error in my project.
Okay, can you tell me the difference?
Suppose any error throw by the flow. So on error propagate tag this error, and after processing this error, it rethrow the error with 400 status code. And suppose in the another hand in on error continue.
One
Suppose
minute, one
error
minute.
throw by
What is 400 status? Means you mean on error propagate always throw error with 400 status code. Where have you applied these things? Hmm?
so sir, it is basically depend on the error type. Like when it goes to the bad request, then it send to the
Hmm.
400 status code, and
Yeah,
it
you
depend on
don't
the
say keep
error type.
400. You do not need to say any error code. You just say tell the nature of on error propagate scope. What is the nature? Hmm. Carry on.
And in other side, in on error continue, suppose error throw by any flow, then on error continue takes this error and execute the error. And after executing it, it send the success result. And in the other term, basically we can say on error continue suppress the error and on error propagate delegation.
Okay, fine. So, here one question arises. Like we know that on error continue suppress the error and throws and gives a success response, right? But
Yes.
why would I use on error propagate? What would be the particular reason that I would use on error propagate to just rethrow the error?
Yes, basically on error propagate is basically used for like uh, send the error response to the client that this type of error is occur during the processor. So you can please handle this error and remove this error and for the smooth experience of the API. And basically on error continue is yes on error continue there are some scenario like we can ignore the error when this type of error we can ignore some types of error when processing of a project, so we can use on error propagate.
Okay, okay, fine. So apart from error handling, like what other scopes you have used?
Yes, there are some scopes like purge scope, async scope, and uh, async try scope, cache
See,
scope.
you
These are
just
the
tell those scope names which you had used in your project.
okay. So in my project, basically, I am only using purge scope
Okay,
and
only for
also
each
on error
and
propagate. For error handling, I am using on error propagate scope.
okay. So, like you were using only for each and error handler scopes. Apart from that, it wasn't that any situation that you came across until successful or other scopes like that?
No,
Okay,
basically,
so do you know what is until successful scope?
yes, until successful scope is basically used to connect with the unstable server.
Okay, unstable.
We
Okay,
can,
and
yes, we can put the try like HTTP request connector into the until successful scope, and
You just
this is the
have to
basic.
tell me the scenario. Suppose the in which situation you will decide, I have to put until scope in the flow.
Yes,
What
when basically
situation or
when
scenario you will decide.
like when we connect with the there are some scenario when HTTP request connector can't connect with the targeted system, so we can use anti-success scope for
Okay,
the
see,
connect
if
with the
suppose HTTP request connector cannot connect to the server and could not get or put the data, so in that scenario, I think it should be throw the error, and the error would be connectivity error. So why we put the
yes
until successful scope in? You got my
uh,
point, no?
yes
If
I
suppose
got it.
there is connectivity error, okay, we just throw the error. If the connectivity error was supposed to happen when we try to connect with some API. So why do we need to put those connector into the until successful scope? Is there any situation? You have to tell me the situation scenario. I have to put these connectors in the until successful scope.
Yes sir. Basically there are when the data is important to send important to get from the HTTP request connector, and in until successful scope there is a configuration like we can uh, we can try to connect with the servers into the this time period. Like our retry mechanism was like 5 times or 4 times, and we can configure in until successful we scope to connect with the server and try to connect with the server 5 times. Basically, there are some times when targeted system which we want to
All
connect
right,
with
Aman, all right.
sometimes.
I think
Yes.
we have very close to end your meeting. Hmm. The HR will give you feedback. Okay.
Okay, so thank you.
Bimal, Aman, you turn off your camera. Bimal will start.
Hi, Bimal, you can start with your introduction.
Yes, thank you for giving me my opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Bimal Kumar, and I have total 3 years of experience as a MuleSoft developer. And in my current organization, I have a skill of different kinds of technology in a MuleSoft, like Anypoint Studio, Anypoint Platform, Postman, and a Ready API, in which we apart from, I have also experience in a database like MySQL and Oracle, and I am quick learner and I have ability to find the problem solution in efficient manner. That's
Okay, great. So you mentioned about MuleSoft and Endpoint Studio. So can you tell me how do we define MuleSoft?
Mule, MuleSoft is a integrated platform where we can where environment where we develop the API, in which we design the API, and what kinds of a response and response and request it will accept.
Okay. Do you know what is YAML?
RAML is a skeleton in which we define how to behave with the system, how to communicate with the systems and other API, and in which we define what kinds of response it will be accept, and what kinds of response it will return. And in RAML we design write the endpoint related information, in which we define the method or a request or a response, and are also defined with what kinds of example it will be given.
Okay, fine. So like where do we design our YAML?
In a design center.
So in YAML, you might have came across the terms like types and traits. Do you know what are these?
Trait is a collection which we define the common error and common security and security scam like things, and it is used for reusability purpose, and it comes under the fermentation, and we can use trait as key.
Okay, fine. And what is types?
Types means resource
And
type. You have to
type is
explain.
used
Means resource
it
type.
is
You
used
have to
resource
explain.
type, in
Yeah.
which we define the type of object. And
Mhm. Okay, fine. So moving on. So where do we publish our API?
exchange any point exchange.
Okay, okay, fine. And the implementation might be done in the studio that you might be aware. So like in the studio, what kind of
Yes.
routers we came across?
We have in a current project, I have used choice router, and in choice router, which is work on a collection, and it take as a collection like array of JSON and CSV, and do the processing of based on the base size. And sorry, choice
Sorry,
router is used. Choice router we have. What have you? Can you repeat?
choice router.
Yes.
Can you explain choice router?
Choice router is used to send a message dynamically, and it send a message in a sequential manner in a single thread, and it check the condition from top to bottom, and when the condition met by the choice router first is true, then send a message to the that router, and if the condition is false, then it send a message to the default router.
Okay. Suppose I'm writing conditions and all the conditions are true. Then what will happen?
It will go the first condition, and it will be the which condition is first come true, that will be the goes to message will goes to that route.
Oh, okay, great. So apart from choice router, do you know what is a scatter gather router?
A scatter gather router is used to send a message to the each router parallelly and process it in case any one router get fail, and a scatter gather will collect the message from the each router and collect the message and finally throw the errors. And with scatter gather we will use try scope, and with on error continue to suppress the error.
Okay, fine. And there is also one more router called API kit router. Do you know what is that?
Yes, API create automated the request, and it's a request. If the request is proper, it's sent to the corresponding placeholder flow, and we capture if there is error, we capture the error message and send the error.
Okay, fine. So, do you know what kind of HTTP methods we use?
Get, post, delete, and put.
What is the difference between put and post?
Uh, uh, Post is basically used to create a new data new resources in which in a port we try to avoid the duplicate record or a reported record. If there is already exist duplicate record, we will overwrite it.
Okay, okay, fine. So, apart from methods, what kind of scopes you are aware in Mulesoft?
We have used for each scope.
See, you
Okay.
listen question
Uh,
properly. She is asking which type of scope you are aware in the Mulesoft. Means tell the name of scopes.
All the
for
scopes.
each for each scope, and parallel for each scope, try scope, on either continue scope, on either propagate scope until successful scope. These are the batch job scope and aggregator scope. These are the scope we have familiar with it.
Okay. So you talked about batch job. Do you know what is batch job?
Yes, a batch job is used to process a large number of record, and batch job has by default 16 thread which can process a millions of record in a minimum time. We can use batch job in a following scenario like processing or migration of one system to another system, ETL kinds of jobs, and process a large numbers of record from large number of record. And it batch job has the three phase: load and dispatch phase, and for record phase and complete phase. And load and dispatch phase, in this phase
Wait,
we
wait, wait, wait. Wait,
raise the
one
payload
second,
into
Vimal.
this.
Vimal, before going to the steps, you mentioned one point, ETL kind of data. What is ETL?
Yes. Extract, transform, and load. To in
Okay,
this we will put the file like to where we have to import the data from anywhere, for that is HTTP. We will put there, and we will configuration, and import the file in a main resources folder to import the something from one system to another system, from one remotely access that file.
okay, fine. I'm not going to those steps, first, second, and third steps. That is a very common thing. So, inside the batch steps, it has some acceptance policies. Can you tell me what are those policies there?
In a maximum fail, in this we define the how many after the errors it will stop the processing. Suppose we will put my in 0, then it will stop when the errors will occur. It will stop the rest of the processing. And suppose we put the -1, if the entire incoming payload will be fail, even it will be not stop the
Sorry,
process.
Bimal, 1 second, Bimal. This is not the exact type of answer I was expecting. So, like in first, you have to name the policies. Like is all, no failure, failure, only failure, like that. So first you name the policies, then one by one you explain them. Okay, that is the process to explain.
Actually, Bimal, she's asking for the acceptance policy, but you are telling about the badge, job scope configuration. Hmm.
Yeah, there is a
We
difference.
batch step policy any will
See,
accept.
don't be panic when someone is asked. You just first listen and understand what she's asking. Then you start replying. You do what? You just listening and without understanding, you start the explaining thing. So this gives you bad feedback in front of any interviewer. Okay, listen things carefully and then start replying. Okay, start.
Yeah. So tell me about the policies again.
Uh, in a batch step, we will accept a policy any or always begin or always. This type of policy is always available.
So, like in the first batch step, sorry. So, first batch step would have some kind of default policy. Do you know what would that be?
Uh, Default policy, it means it will accept the any kinds which in any errors will occur that will not stop the processing.
Yeah. So that means that the first batch step will always accept all kind of requests, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, do you know what is batch aggregator?
Yes, in a batch aggregator, it aggregate the what it is a generate a statistical report in which it is mention how many record is being processed successfully, how many record is being failed, and how many record is get under the process. This type of statistical report we generate in this.
Nida,
Yeah, Bimal. So I think I'm done from my side. Do you have any question?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So you will get your feedback soon. Thank you.